So welcome back to the part 3. Remember, we are still on the revision in Maths 303, Communication Research. So, in this part 3, we'll be looking at proposal writing. And what is proposal writing? Proposal writing in research is very fundamental. And a proposal is a blueprint of the entire research. Proposal is a blueprint of the entire research. It is an aspect of a research that gives us a synopsis, a summary of the entire idea of what you intend to do as a researcher. Now remember that as a researcher, when you're asked to put forward a proposal, you must align with those elements that constitute or that comes together to form a proposal. And we are going to be discussing these elements one after another. And we say that a good proposal must capture chapter 1, 2, and 3. Now, in those elements, I will briefly mention some of them. Number 1 is the research topic. In your proposal, you come up with a good research topic that is, media related in the context of, mass communication student. You come up with a media related topic. After the title or the topic of your research, the next thing is background to the study, which is 1.1. You come up with a background to the study. And background to the study is where you establish or provide a convincing reason or justification for the need for you to undertake the research. It must be persuasive and strong enough to sustain the interest of your supervisor. The next thing is 1.2, which is the problem statement. And problem statement is where you articulate the gaps that you have identified in the literature. That, look, this is what prompted the study based on this gap and this gap. This study intends to come to fill these gaps and all of that. Then 1.3 is the objectives of the study. And when we talk about the objectives of the study, is what the study set to achieve. At the end of the day, you have the broad aim of the study, and then from that end, you carve out specific objectives which the study intends to achieve at the end of the day. Then 1.4 is research questions. And when we talk about the research questions, they are templates that guide the researcher to achieve the objectives of the study. In other words, research questions are the basic tools of scientific inquiry. They help the researcher to answer, those objectives. So, the next one is 1.5, which is significance of the study. And significance of the study, we are talking about the importance of the study. And you can establish the importance of the study by looking at how is the study important to you as a researcher, to the society, to the body of knowledge, to the methodology, to the theoretical framework, and to policy makers. The next one is 1.6, which is the scope of the study. And the scope of the study, we are looking at the areas that you are going to, limiting your study to. Scope of the study has to do with the territory within which your study is going to focus or to cover. And we have different types of scope. You can look at your study within the geographical scope. You can look at it within the theoretical scope. You can look at it within the methodological scope. You can look at it within the demographic scope. And you can also look at it within the context of time scope, from so-so time to so-so time. So these are the layers within which you can establish the scope of the study. Now, after that, we have 1.7. And in 1.7, you can tag it as the limitation to the study, although it depends on the orientation of the researcher. Some students, establish or put their limitation in chapter 5, while in some institutions, students put their limitation in chapter 1, which is like providing an anticipated limitation, things that could, later maybe will serve as limitation to you as a researcher. And when we are talking about limitation to the study, we're not talking about time, we're not talking about resources, we're not talking about transportation, and these are not limitations. Because remember, in the part 2 of our revision class, we say you must answer the 8 questions identified by Wilmer and Dominic. And part of that question is, do you have the time and resources? So by answering that question, which means time, resources, transportation should not be a limitation. Limitation of the real challenge. Maybe it could be with maybe the respondents could, since you're dealing with human beings, there's possibility that they can deceive you. What are the difficulties you encountered? It could be, you can look at it from the methodological, limitation. What are the disadvantages? What are the drawbacks of those methods you are using? You can locate your limitation to study within the context of theoretical framework. What are the criticisms? What are the criticisms or disadvantages of those theories? You can articulate that and translate them into a good limitation to the study. Now, the 1.8, which is the last one in this context, is the operational definition of terms. And when we say operational definition of key concepts, we are looking at how can a researcher, provide a working definition of those concepts or terms he or she is using in her study. Because we are not, when we talk about limitation or operational definition of terms, we're not talking about scholarly definition, we're not talking about dictionary meaning, we're not talking about online meaning. Most students, when they talk about operational definition of terms, they will start quoting scholars' definition by scholars, dictionary meaning. No, it's about you as a researcher. How can you provide a working definition of those contexts, concepts or terms? And remember, you must locate those terms within the context of your study. In other words, you must tie those concepts or terms back to your topic. So you are the researcher, you're the one that is providing a working definition of those terms or concepts. So when we talk about operational definition of terms, we're not talking about dictionary meaning, we're not talking about scholarly definition, we're not talking about internet, meaning attached to those, words or concepts. You are done with your chapter 1. These are the fundamental components or elements in chapter 1. Now in the chapter 2, you make sure that in the proposal writing you can just briefly sketch out how your chapter 2 will look at. You will look like. For example, you're looking at the conceptual review, the empirical review, and the theoretical review. These are the major 3 components of chapter 2. Where you start from the concepts. What are those concepts you're going to analyze or you're going to discuss in the course of the proposal? So you identify the concepts you are looking at. After those concepts, you can be able to briefly highlight some of the empirical studies that have direct bearing to what you are investigating, not just selecting studies anyhow. Select current studies that has direct bearing to the subject matter. Scholars who undertake similar study that can help you to strengthen the argument in the context of your study. Then the theoretical review, you're going to review a number of theories. Then at the end, you can pick 1 or 2 theories and anchor your study that your study can anchor on. Then you can decide to also have a theoretical framework section. There's a difference between theoretical review and theoretical framework. You can review a number of theories and then you have 1 or 2 theories that will serve as theoretical framework of the study. Then in the chapter 3, you briefly discuss your research method. You start from research design. What is the research design? And remember, in research design, we have 4 types of research design. We also call them the philosophy or the paradigms. We have the positivism, the transformative, the pragmatism, and the constructivism. When you pick any of these things to anchor your research design, then you move to research method. Then after research method, you go to the population of the study. After population of the study, you go to the sampling techniques. After sampling techniques, you go to sample size. After sample size, instrument of data collection. After instrument of data collection, then you go to maybe reliability and validity. Then you go to method of data analysis and presentation. You are done with the summary of chapter 3 and proposal is ready. Thank you very much. That's all for this class.